Hello again. Welcome to Inspired Voices with Sangwadzi. I'm back, and as usual, I always bring one guest who an ordinary person who is doing extraordinary work. And our platform really we talk about we bring an opportunity to people who otherwise you never hear of to bring out their voices, to tell us what they're doing, to educate us, and to inspire us. Today, I've got a fantastic guest. I've got Rufaro
Thank you.
Kaseke. Some of you have seen him on Facebook, talking about different things, right? Rufaro is an activist, he's a filmmaker, and also he's an academician. He does a lot of things. And I tried to get hold of him. I first got hold of him when he was in Kenya. And then the second time I did so, he said, oh, Sangwadzi, I am in Tanzania. And can you call me in like 2 weeks' time? He was now in London. And now I am talking to him and he's in Xiamen in China. Rufaro, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I tried to point out who is Rufaro, but I don't think I put it the whole a proper picture of who you are. Tell us who you are. Where were you born? And before we get into the discussion of today, which I will explain later, I want you to tell me, who are you? Who is Rufaro? Where were you born? Where did you go to school? And how did you get on this path?
Okay. Well, you've already mentioned some of the things. I was born in Zimbabwe at Harare Hospital, Yakunzi Pagomo. That's where I grew up. I grew up in Chitungwiza, together with millions of young people that I'm now trying to motivate and to become better people. I obviously, like many other young people, I started, trying to just to find yourself and trying to see who you are and where you fit in. But I was very sure about, well, not sure. I was motivated about what I wanted from day one. I always knew that I want to work in a studio. So I was the kind of kid who would sit around when you're watching a cartoon series back when we were young. I was probably the only kid who would sit around and watch the credits. I was fascinated. I had peculiar curiosity from day one, and I liked reading. I would read anything. I remember my dad used to say, "Just read anything, even on a bus. If I see something on a bus, I'll try to read what's written on the bus and everything." So I grew up in Chitungwiza, and I was kind of nurtured there. And then I went to high school in Masvingo. And then when I finished high school, I started making films. Well, not before I started making films. I mean, it's a long story. I did so many kind of jobs. I remember one of the memorable ones is when I worked for QV pharmacies. When I was 21, I had a decent job for a 21-year-old. Which I started obviously very, very low, but they realized how curious I was in learning. So I always tell my friends that right now I can read a prescription. So when I go to the doctors and they write 1 TDS, I know that it's called 3 times a day. And when they write a prescription and they say, for example, they prescribe Doxypol for a toothache, I'll be like, that's a bit too much for a toothache, don't you think? So I kind of learned a lot of things in that process. But my passion kept drawing me to art. So art involves questioning things, and subsequently that's how I got into activism, because I would always question things. I was never one person who would just get given an idea and just take it without questioning it. I then went into filmmaking. Long story short, the way I started is that I just started telling stories with my friends in the ghetto. We would just pick up a small camera and we would start making short stories about what was going on around us. So it all ties into how one becomes an activist, because filmmaking, in a way, is commentary. It's social commentary. So we're telling stories about all these things that happen. So many social stories, social commentary, so to speak. The passion kept growing, and the curiosity kept growing, because with filmmaking you then get tools. I think one of the things that I have discovered in growing up is that young people need tools. People will be talented in so many ways, but if nobody points them to the kind of tools that they can
Mhm.
use to steer their passion or to steer their skills, whether whatever it is, it's very difficult, you know. So I found a tool that I could use to ask questions. Like I said before, I was always, someone who asked questions. And so in 2010, long story short, we made a film called Lobola. This film was a groundbreaking film in Zimbabwean terms, because it was the first independent film to start with. Independent in the sense that it wasn't funded by NGOs, because and up until that time, most films in Zimbabwe, remember, all the Nerias, all the yellow cards, they were funded by NGOs. So the NGOs were kind of dictating the story, dictating the idea. So if it's about HIV or it's about inheritance, in the case of Neria, you kind of have to steer. So in our case, we made a film about things that we were experiencing. So Lobola really opened up our eyes together with the people that I worked with. And subsequently, long story short, it was banned. It was banned 3 days before the premiere of the film. So it kind of generated a lot of interest in the country, because it involved one of the actors was from Big Brother Africa, All Stars, Munya Chidonga. So he was in there. And when he came out of Big Brother Munya, there was so much controversy around him and around how he was mistreated on Big Brother show. And then he ended up getting, the attention of the president, because from Big Brother, he went straight to the president's house, Mugabe then. So that kind of gave the film a little bit of traction. And I
But how
remember
old how old were you then when Lobola came up, when
I
you
was
did Lobola?
30.
Okay.
I was 30. That was
Mhm,
in 2010.
mhm.
Yeah. So I remember when we were watching the film with the censorship board, then I think Mr. Malaba and all those people were still members of the censorship board. They banned the film. And when we were asking why they banned the film, they said that, oh, you're mutilating our culture because of one scene where uh, the brother of the bride just stormed into the ceremony wearing a tight t-shirt and shorts, and he was drunk and all that. And then they said, no, that's how things are done. I said, okay, that's the whole point of a film. The whole point of a film is to provoke conversation, because these things are happening. We have these kind of characters in our societies. Long back and forth, and the film got banned 3 days before our guests was ready. Um, uh, my phone doesn't stop ringing. I'm sorry. Uh, so yeah, that happened, and eventually the film got played, and it was a fantastic reception. So that gave us the confidence to say, hey, look, we can actually tell stories. Soon after that, Lobola was made. It was at that time, I think, the most successful independent film made by young filmmakers who had nothing in their pockets, because I think we sold over 70,000 copies of it on the street. So that gave us a lot of confidence. We grew from that. And then the next film was the Gentleman, which again was much bigger in scale, because on The Gentleman, we had one of the actors from a film called Tsotsi, which was a South African film,
Yeah,
the
I
only
remember
African
this.
film to win an Oscar. Yeah, exactly. So the guy was acting as Tsotsi in Tsotsi, came to work with us on our next film, which was big for us. It was huge. And that kind of propelled us into thinking, hey, look, we can actually do this thing. And The Gentleman did well internationally. It had a massive premiere in London, in Prince Charles Cinema, Leicester Square, massive premiere. So from there, we kind of just kept going and going and going. And then that landed me into the master's program, because I was then invited into the academy. Because I remember those days I used to, between the gentlemen and all that, we made a lot of other productions. I remember we did a project with Coca-Cola and all those other people. But the gentleman blended me into the academy, where I started doing my MA. I did my MA with the University of Bedfordshire. And after that, because
Were
obviously
you
of my
doing?
experience,
Did you do your masters in? You went to England and you did your masters in filmmaking.
yeah, I did my master's in creative digital filmmaking in England. Yeah.
Okay.
It was an invitation by the academy to say, hey, look, we think you can do this. And I said, okay, fine, I can do it. And then after that, obviously, I got then invited again into the PhD. So the PhD, my PhD is on globalization. So I can say, I'm a specialist in globalization, but film was a part of my methodology.
Okay.
So in my PhD has got a written component, which is around 40,000 words, and then there's the film component. So I went to a creative arts university. So for my PhD, I went to the kind of university that only trains artists. They don't train accountants. They don't train nurses. Yeah, they only do creative specialists. So I did that, and I literally just finished it. I had my viva. I also, again, with the PhD, you grow a lot. It's one of those processes that you will grow because you work alone. You're on your own, so you're kind of your own teacher. So in between that, when I was doing my PhD,
I always
go
used
on.
to say when you do your master's degree and you go for your doctorate, really, you are getting your professors and you are telling them what you're going to do. It's not going there and being fed with
Absolutely.
information. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
no, with the
that's
PhD
very
is
interesting. That's very interesting
mm,
because I don't think people know you, Rufaro, is Dr. Rufaro Kaseke. You don't use that. You're an artist, you're a creative person, and whatever. But to a lot, even to myself, I didn't realize you actually do have a PhD from a university in England. It's quite enlightening.
yeah.
And okay, let me stop
Mm,
you there. It's what you have told me so far about your progression from filmmaking, from street filmmaking to really opportunity to contribute to some major films in Zimbabwe, and going to school and really moving over to globalization, and then
yeah.
initially, really, I thought I was just going to talk to you about Tim Shena. We know that the problem.
That's part of my story.
I know that, and I found it very interesting and very digestible, because it's something that, if you're from Zimbabwe, you know what it is. And when I first heard of Tim Shena, I thought it's just people vanongoswera vachiita shena vachingotamba vasingaitini, until I heard it's Tim Shenanigans. These are the guys who you are trying to address the problem that we're having. It's a good thing you gave us this narration as to how you moved to where you are. Zimbabwe right now is facing quite a serious problem with unemployment, right? You're an activist. There are some times or some spaces where you'll be talking about, why are we here? Why are we having such problems with 85% unemployment? But again, that's not where I am going with this. I just want to focus on that being the situation with lots of kids who have university degrees, who've got technical education, and are doing nothing. But you are trying to
Yeah.
help them, inspire them, so that you can come up with alternatives here, right? With
Yeah. Yeah.
alternative things. And you yourself have traveled to Kenya, to Uganda, to Tanzania. As I'm talking to you right now, you are wearing a different hat. You are out in
Mm,
China right now, seeing what's there and what's
yeah.
possible. So talk to
Yeah.
me about this Operation Shenanigans and what you're trying to say to the youths, because I mean it is what it is right now. But you
Mm,
when things get rough, yeah, then tough people get going, right? And so
Yeah,
that's
the
what you're
task
trying
get
to, yeah,
going.
that, yeah, that's what you're trying to tell people, that you know what, it's not easy, yes, but you're not going to lie down and
Mm.
and just cry. You can do
Yeah.
this. Yeah, talk to me about that,
Mm.
about alternatives and team shenanigans.
Okay. Yeah, shenanigans is just a concept that I came up with because I grew up doing these things. I grew up doing all these gardenings. Most of my family are engineers, they are builders, bricklayers. So I'm probably the odd one out in the family who went my own way, but it was born in me. So with shenanigans, I'm trying to communicate the idea that you can you can use your hands to do almost anything you can think of. These skills are not you're not born with them. You acquire them through your curiosity. So shenanigans, yakabva pashena, mabasa eshena. A lot of young people, when I started the movement, they say to me, "Oh, we used to be so embarrassed to call ourselves carpenters. We used to be so embarrassed to tell our girlfriends we are bricklayers because we thought these jobs are looked down upon," which is true in our society. That's why you
True.
see a lot of people, they want to go to university and they want to do these white collar jobs and whatever, biochemists, whatever. But my argument is that everything that we do involves Shenaland. There's a Shenaland involved in everything we do. We wouldn't be sitting in these buildings if Shena people didn't build these buildings, right?
True.
So the message to the young people is that get a skill, whatever it is, get a skill because shenanigans create local economies. My argument is that we need to create local economies. For example, if there is a marketplace where people sell their wares, or whatever, we've got a lot of dilapidated, bad-looking marketplaces, especially where I grew up. I'm saying that if you have a skill, if you are a carpenter, if you are a bricklayer, if you are a plumber, if whatever you are, people will look for you rather than you looking for a job because everybody needs to have a plumber. If your toilet is not working, you need a plumber. If your door is broken down, you will need a carpenter. So these are everyday things that people need. These skills, if you have them, if a lot of people that I talk to right now, I've talked to a lot of people who have said, especially in the UK, people who came through the COS kind of setup, who are saying, "Hey, I didn't realize that you can actually make money with these things." So instead of waiting for Zimbabwe to become whatever it's going to be in future, you start to develop those skills now rather than waiting, right? So you start to experimenting with wood, experimenting with bricklaying, experimenting with whatever you can experiment with so that you then become useful, you then become needed. The reason why a lot
Yeah.
of kids right now are just sitting around because they don't feel needed by anybody. They're not they feel like they've just been left out because the perception is that you need to go to school and then you need to get a degree, become an accountant, whatever. You do accounts for who in an economy like ours? You're
Yeah,
not
that's
needed.
exactly
But
what I was going to say,
yeah,
because really, and in Zimbabwe, actually the difference is, it's not that they didn't do universities, they didn't do. A lot of them have graduated from these institutions in Zimbabwe, and they are seated by the
yeah,
roadside there with a degree, and it's 4 years down the road after they exited
down the
university.
drain.
Four
Yeah,
years, and then they're not
yeah.
doing anything. Mm.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So it's I use my myself an example. I try to walk the talk in the sense that even though I'm doing globalization, I know how to fix doors. I know how to do plumbing. I do all things, and people call me sometimes. I don't even have time to do it. Like here, I'm in China. I left jobs out there in the UK that I had to give to somebody else to do to do because these kind of trades are the kind of trades that people need. People need houses. Every day, people need to stay in a house that's got windows, that's got doors. A house that's got at least a functional, a plumbing system, electricians, and
But
not
but
just
then
in
but then
Zimbabwe. These
Rufaro,
skills,
the thing is, I think then people look to the government that they should provide the training for them. Isn't that a problem? Maybe yes, I do understand what you're saying, but people always assume that, okay, these are great ideas you're coming up. these young people can be trained to do all this carpentry, bricklaying, and whatever, but they expect the government to do that. Under normal circumstances, that would be it. You should tell me a little bit more about what you're seeing in China and what could be an option maybe for Zimbabweans as well. But the thing is, they expect the government to create those opportunities for them. But what are you saying? Can they just learn from somebody else? What are we saying?
Well, it's already happening. I mean, look, if you look at your country, it's a very informal economy, right? So if someone can, I don't think the government has got a training center for vendors. It doesn't have a training center for vendors. Nobody teaches them how to do vending. They just vend on their own. They learn how to sell things. It's the same thing you learn how to, because services are also a product, right? Unfortunately, for our government, what should be happening, what I think should be happening on a realistic level, is that our government should be, these are very cheap things to do. For example, if they take, like, for example, a dilapidated marketplace, right? And they buy a whole bunch of wood, right? And they say, hey, we need 3, 4, 5 young people to come here and build a marketplace. The same marketplace that was there, just done better. It doesn't cost much. It really doesn't, because it's all just wood and iron sheets and a bit of cement and concrete and whatever. And say, hey, we've got a project here that would then get those kids occupied. So, for example, in Budiriro, pane musika wakapwanyika vanhu vakutengesera musika usina kana mashedza atakudona whatever. You say, hi, we've got a program, right? From tomorrow, we need 6, 7 people to train. So you'll be teaching them how to do that. You get a few mentors. There's hundreds and thousands of carpenters in our experienced ones. You take 2 of them and you say, hey, I want you to train carpenters how to cut this and do this and do this. You are empowering them, but you're not just empowering them. You're also empowering the people who sell their wares on that thing. That's the local economy you're building. You have to build the local informal economies are already there. But like that, they are not controlled, right? So in societies like China, for instance, everything, as you know already, the state controls almost everything, and they do it so efficiently. So, right,
Talk to me about that.
down the road.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they are very, 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 they're good at what they do, because just down the road from where I'm staying, just across the road there are food stores. These are food stores that were built on, like mama food stores, child, where they sell food. So there's a whole line of them. They are lined up all the way down the road, right? And these are very cheap to make. If I look at the setup that they were made, very cheap. So the material is like plastic material, hardened plastic. They build a quick shed and they build a lot of them, and then people start selling their wares, their food in those food stores. Clean, they've got electricity, they've got water, everything is set up, but they're not expensive to set up. If you look at the structures, you'll be like, wow, this can actually be moved. If they want to move those structures tomorrow, they'll be gone by the morning, because they are shiftable. So it's a matter of us adapting what we already have and then making it better, because we already have an informal economy. Already. That's not going to go away anytime soon. But if we improve that, it will create a local economy where people can start to make money from that, because obviously the person who's going to build that, if they build that, and you say to someone who is renting that and say, okay, you're going to be paying 25 cents rent or dollar rent, whatever. That's money being generated and going into whatever, whether it's utilities or whatever. So I think the state just needs to get a bit more serious and look into what they already have and not look at what went wrong. Look at what can we do right from here, because there's a lot we can do. We've got like all those furniture places that always burn in Mapuku or all them on, it's because they're not built properly. But if you build structures properly, fireproof structures, those people will start paying rent because they'll be making more money. You've got little roads built in there and whatnot and whatnot. So it's a matter of looking at what we have already. That's why the globalization comes in. You look at what you have already, and then you see, let's improve on it. That's exactly what the Chinese government do.
So right now you are in China, and I saw your posting on Facebook. For how long are you there? At one of the college universities, and you are teaching. Are you there to teach uh, art filmmaking? Tell me about why you are there in China right now. Yes, you told us a lot of these options that are there that we could. I think the government could pick on and actually maybe even improve to suit our local economy, which also is an informal economy. But why are you in
Mm.
China right now? What and you are there? Look, it's already 25 after. We could go another hour.
I know, yeah.
So we've got five
Mm.
minutes for you to tell me what you are there, and then we can kind of find a way of rounding this conversation, which is amazing, really.
Wow, thank you. Well, I'm working with the Institute of Creativity and Innovation at Charmin University. So I'm lecturing here as a visiting lecturer. So it's an institution that's working together with Charmin University and University for the Creative Arts. So I'm teaching film in here. So I'm teaching film and I'm preparing students. A lot of our students that we work with are those kind of students who want to go and study overseas in colleges like Royal College of Art or MIT or whatever college that they want to go to. So we're kind of just preparing those kids to become, China is very big at preparing its citizens to become influential in other countries. So I'm here just lecturing film. Really.
Father, you know what? You've just a lot of work. Let me say, guys, a lot of work you are doing. So many things, and I don't even know where you find the time. Let's talk a little bit before we wind up. Talk a little bit about people in Zimbabwe. The focus on going to England or South Africa, of course, but South Africa has got its own problem. But England also has got its own challenges for people who are coming in,
Mm,
COS and all these other things in the United Kingdom, and most countries anyway. It's getting difficult to go and look for alternative employment. But you talk to me
mm,
about this obsession with the United Kingdom, COS, the challenges there, and yet there are options with other local, the regional countries like
mm,
Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya,
mm.
Tanzania, Uganda. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's a tragedy because nobody's talking about it. I think there's a lot of intra-Africa development going on. So people selling their houses and their businesses to go and work in the UK is good. People have got that option. But I think it's the lack of information and the lack of insight. For example, in Tanzania, Tanzania is a growing economy. It's growing in the right sense of the word. In Tanzania, I saw growth points. Because when you talk of a growth point, you talk of a space that's actually growing, right? So for people who do construction, who do mining, Tanzania is decentralizing a lot. So you can see that different kinds of towns do different kinds of things. So instead of someone just getting fixated on going to Europe and doing the same thing, people should consider using the skills that they already have. Got a lot of people who are doing carpentry, their business in South Africa, that they sold and for just literally left their life and started a new life. It's fine. But I think people should consider East Africa because East Africa is growing. The economies there are stable. In Tanzania, for example, even in Kenya, Kenya is growing when it comes to the digital age. Kenya is advanced when it comes to the digital. So most companies like Google has got a big office in Kenya, a big workshop, a big operation going on there. So online business, doing things online, whether it's doing websites, whatever, is big in Kenya. Construction is big in Tanzania, big time.
Wow.
So people should consider those things before they abandon their gifts and abandon their passions and their businesses to go and work in the UK. You just shift your operation into Tanzania and you'll not go wrong. I've seen Zimbabweans doing amazing things in Tanzania in terms of business. So yeah, I mean, I've got a guy in our network. His company was one of the companies who built the Google office in Kenya. It's a construction company. So he did all the
He's from
consulting
Zimbabwe.
and all that and all. He's a Zimbabwean guy, yeah. The guy who makes all the food ink, every single food ink you find in Tanzania that gets printed on the food is a Zimbabwean company.
On that
So
note,
On
I
that
would
note,
like on that note. I mean, can you imagine? It's 30 minutes already, and it's like we just
I
started.
know
But you know what? I'll keep
we can always
following
do
you,
it next
Rufaro.
time.
I think, yeah, I would like to thank you so much for the amazing work you are
Thank
doing
you.
to empower other, younger people, or just people in general. We need voices like yours to we need to amplify these voices, and also to to inspire younger people, older people, so that you see alternatives. Unless someone tells you
Yeah,
something you don't know, you're kind of stuck with what you know, right? And a lot of times
yeah,
you can't move. If you keep doing the same thing, usually you get the same results. So I'd like to thank you so much for the
absolutely.
work that for the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you
And
for your
yeah,
platform. Thank you for the opportunity.
yes, I will always be knocking on your door for anything else. I'll be checking on you. I follow you quite, on
Thank
social
you.
media. Yes, yes, and great
Thank you
job.
very
And
much.
for all those who are listening, young people who are out there, you had Team Shenanigans. Keep going, Operation Shenanigans. There are many, many things that people can do that they might not be aware of, but you heard it from Rufaro, who's been around, and he's going around the world and doing quite a lot of things. And I hope you follow through. And thank you again. And for those who are listening, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Inspired Voices with Sangwadzi. And I will be seeing you again next week with another guest that I will invite to talk about amazing things. Thank you. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.